presentation, I will discuss the issue of whether or not children who suffer from autistic spectrum disorder should be allowed into the mainstream classroom in Australia. I present arguments from both sides, supported by literature and evidence. I will also talk about some of the legislations and policies when it comes to discriminating against anybody for their ability or disability in terms of the type of education that students are entitled to. There are people in this world who do not believe that children with autistic spectrum disorder, or ASD, ought to be allowed in the mainstream classroom with all of the children who do not suffer from any mental or physical disabilities. One of the main reasons that these people argue for this is because they believe that the child with ASD can take away from the education of the other children. In many cases, this can be correct. During my own professional experience placement earlier this semester, I was observing in a class which had a child with ASD. For the sake of this assignment, I'll refer to this student as Justin. Justin was a disruptive student who was in a class of grade 6 students. During the middle of class, on several occasions, Justin would get quite upset and leave the classroom whilst yelling and swearing. The teacher had to go after him to calm him down and keep him from running away. If it were any other week and I were not there, the rest of the students would have been left on their own. On 2 days, there was somebody who worked in the office and could go get Justin, but the office worker would sometimes be busy, or on other days not even be there at all. Even when Justin was staying in class, the teacher would have to spend quite a bit of time focusing on him when the other students needed help too. It is evident that in classrooms with students like this, the other students' education can be a bit lacking simply because of less time with the teacher. An option is available for students such as this. A teacher's aide can be helpful in a classroom with a disabled student such as Justin, as they can focus on one particular student whilst the rest of the class gets their time with the teacher. The aide can even add to other children's educations by helping them if the disabled student does not require their help at the time. An aide is not the only possible option for students with ASD. If a school thinks that funding is better spent on technology or other resources, they might spend the funding on something like this. However, it's not always easy to get an aide or the funding for one or any other resources. According to Foundation Education, a teacher's aide salary can be up to $64,000 a year. This quite often requires the parents of a disabled child to apply for funding with the school, which can be a difficult process, according to a document on the Victorian Government website called PSD Roles and Responsibilities. The document describes that a school must show that they are working hard enough to help the child and facilitate to their needs in order to get the funding. There must also be evidence that the child's disability is affecting their ability and the ability of others in the class to learn. The school and the family need to fill out an application form which shows which disability the child is suffering from. The assessment authority then must assess whether or not the student's disability is severe enough for funding, which is often not the case, and the student and school get no funding whatsoever. If the student's disability is not severe enough to warrant funding, they may apply for funding on the grounds that the child's behavioural problems are out of hand. However, there is a large middle area of students that do not behave badly and only have mild ASD, and therefore get no funding for an aide or other resources. According to Autism Spectrum Australia, one of the main characteristics of ASD is a lack of standard social abilities. This can sometimes be mild, and a child simply doesn't understand some social cues, or in other cases it can be quite severe. In these more severe cases, the student with autism can be screaming and yelling. In other cases, the student could also be curled up in a ball rocking back and forth. Many parents would not want their sons or daughters exposed to this kind of behaviour, particularly swearing or other unruliness and bad behaviour, as this could influence their own child to act out in similar ways. Not only this, but this can create a very difficult learning environment. The students can easily get distracted and not want to do their work, or find it difficult to do their work whilst that is going on. After all, wouldn't you find it difficult to concentrate and do your work like normal when there's a child in the corner curled up into a ball, rocking back and forth and screaming out profanities directed at you. However, I believe that students without standard social skills are important in the classroom. Classrooms and students need variety. If students only have experience with one type of person, they will only have the social skills needed to talk to and work with that particular type of person, who is most likely similar to themselves. One of the reasons that students are sent to schools so much more often than they are homeschooled is because of the social skills and friendships that students learn at school, simply through interacting with a wide variety of students with different personalities. The whole point of school is to make sure that students are prepared for life after school, such as at work or university. Part of being ready for the workforce is having the ability to work with co-workers. There's a high chance that these co-workers may have a disability, or they may simply be difficult to get along with. If people haven't had the chance in the past to socialise with similar people, they may find this essential task quite difficult. It is in this way that having students with autism and other disabilities is essential to help all of the other students in the class learn some major life skills. According to Vygotsky's theory of constructivism, people learn from their real-life experiences and social interactions. This means that it is important that everybody has the opportunities to have social interactions as often as possible. It also means that people need variety in those social interactions. Imagine if people only had the same interactions with the same people every day. It is similar to a teacher in a class only ever teaching the exact same area of maths or English, or having a teacher who only knows a small amount that they are restricted to teaching. If Vygotsky's theory is correct, and we learn from social interactions, there is surely only a certain amount that we can learn if the people that we interact with are also similar to ourselves. However, if we can learn from those people and the people with ASD on top of that, with completely different vocabulary, knowledge and personalities, we can learn so much more. In a classroom setting, this means that if there is variety in the students and their knowledge, personalities and abilities, they can learn so much more from each other than if all the students were of similar abilities and personalities. This means that both students with ASD and other students without it can benefit from ASD students being in a mainstream classroom. All of the students in that classroom will be better prepared for life after school, which I believe is the main point of school. If all of these students are well-prepared, competent people, that means that there will be less people who need the help of things like Centrelink. This essentially means that we'll have to all pay less taxes because people with and without disabilities will all be able to support themselves. The UN Convention of the Rights of People with Disabilities states under Article 24 that it is illegal to not include any children with any disabilities in the education system. Not only is it illegal to exclude these people, but the article also expresses that we must go the extra mile to give any necessary individualized support. There needs to be facilities in the school to reasonably accommodate the needs of the child with a disability so that they may have a quality and effective education. The school cannot discriminate because of a student's disability. If a student wishes to attend a certain school, the school and the principal cannot say no. They can only suggest that the student is not well suited to the school, and there are other schools, such as special schools, that would better accommodate that child. Just think about if it were you or your child who was discriminated against because of autism. Even if the child was high functioning and actually so much further ahead in their knowledge on any particular topic, or for the most part fairly standard. Imagine if children like that only had the option to attend special schools where they were taught simple things that they already had mastered, such as dressing themselves or cooking toast. In conclusion, there are several reasons that a student that suffers from ASD can take away from the education of other students in a mainstream classroom. The student with ASD can dominate or monopolise the time spent with the teacher or simply be a distraction. However, the student with ASD can also add to the education of the other students through funding or simply bringing variety into a classroom, making sure that both they and all the other students all learn from each other in social interactions. This is why I am of the firm belief that all students, no matter their ability or disability, ought to be allowed in the mainstream classroom of Australia. However, even if anybody disagrees with that statement, just remember that it is actually illegal not to include everybody, because in the end it would be a matter of discrimination, which would be no better than not letting a student into a school because of the colour of their skin. I believe that we as a society are above that sort of discrimination and need to move past it.